6-year term.
I know, I know, and I've already done almost
You
3.
signed up for the big one.
I know, so I'm gonna be there for like almost 9 years. You know, you're stuck with me. But no, it's a lot of fun. And Tina, I just saw Tina come in, didn't I?
She's
There
right
she
there.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
just started last year, so it's. I think we have a good team. Kind of fun.
Brenda does a good job. She's very organized.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
So yes, supervisors of the checklist and U.S. senators are the only 6-year positions.
Well, I don't get paid nothing like a U.S. senator.
You don't get all the headaches they have. Either.
Yeah, no lifetime health insurance.
Go in a popper and come out a multi-millionaire. Hey, you know.
We just opened a can of worms.
Anyone here? Lisa, would you like to speak as town clerk tax collector candidate?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. As I said hello when I first walked in. I'm the town clerk tax collector. I've been doing the job since May of 2022. It's quite a job, I will tell you that. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of people in town, all good people. Can't complain about that. And I just hope that if I'm lucky enough to be voted back in, I will do my best to take care of everyone in town. With your taxes and your cars and whatever else. Dogs.
Thanks for that reminder.
But that's about it.
Any questions?
April 1st.
Any questions for Lisa? All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Anybody running as a write-in
Sit, sit.
for town clerk tax collector? Thank you. Treasurer, is Carleen Wardwell here?
No.
All right. Trustee of the trust fund, Bob Zinsmeister. All right. That's all. Anybody else running for any other town positions I don't know about? All right, we'll move on.
I was just thinking.
We'll move on to school board. School board member at large is a Greenville resident, but both New Ipswich and Greenville vote for him. So we currently have Tom Falter listed. I don't see Tom here. All right. Any other write-in? Well, I guess there could be write-in candidates for Greenville resident, school board member at large. No takers, all right. New Ipswich school board member, Karen Matson,
She was unable to make it.
all right. Jesus Cantu Trevino,
Yes, sir. Howdy, everybody. My sister's Cantu Trevino, and we just moved up here this past summer. I've been a teacher for over a decade in the state of Texas, and I figured if anybody would be well representing both the parents as a father of 2 and representing the teachers as well in a balanced way. I've seen some changes definitely from Texas to up here, and so I plan to bring a little bit of Texas hopefully to the school board. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
do
sir.
you have more Texas conservatism than New England liberalism?
I'm a registered Republican, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Were you a member of the teachers union?
No, ma'am.
Oh, good.
It's, you guys treat, I don't know, I guess treat unions a little differently than we do in Texas. We don't give them as much power. We believe in individual liberty and the right to negotiate, not collectively, but self.
Sweet.
And so,
Amen.
yeah, it's a little, it's definitely different up here. It's not bad, great folk, but I'm definitely trying to make it a little bit more live free or die, if we would.
Yes.
Hey, say your name once more.
Jesus.
The whole name.
Yes, sir.
The whole name.
Jesus. Americo Cantu Trevino. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Now-
I won't try to memorize it.
Oh, no, sir.
And what do you feel about critical race training, the CRT, critical race training, and all the various diversity type things that
I think we, as it is, diversity, everything should be based on merit. It's, we are ourselves and represent ourselves. No one should be linked higher or lower because of the color of their skin or what they believe in. It's just what we believe in. And there's many ways to describe a CRT. It's a reason why it's a theory. And it's
Yes.
someone's theory. It's not a law, and it won't be a law. So.
But it's not taught in the schools.
No,
Let's
so-
get that straight. It is not,
It is.
it is not part of the education curriculum in New Hampshire,
But it is
in the elementary school level.
But it is pushed.
So I agree.
But
So
it's not taught.
I will say this.
So there's a big difference.
Let me tell you something, I used to work for a publisher of school books.
Yeah,
And
but
it's sprinkled into
so
everything from
when
history
you,
to English,
when
and
you
it's
say
pushed.
that it's taught, that is incorrect. It is not taught.
No, it
It
is,
is not-
it
it
is
is
correct.
not
You
taught.
don't know what you're talking about.
Don't, first of all, I have a PhD, so I do know what I'm talking about.
Hello.
Oh, wow,
Whoa,
there you go,
whoa.
hallelujah, good for you.
About the
So-
candidate, though.
so-
Yeah, I
Good for
forgot
you.
to mention where he works
What-
right now and.
Yeah. So I can say this. You're correct. It is not taught as a curriculum. CRT is pushed as an individual point of view. And so when we talk about history or anything else as an educator, what you give emphasis to really makes a difference. You have a PhD, I'm pretty sure that every single professor had their own point of view, either towards theory or some kind of perspective, if you would, especially if it's social. And so you're correct. Now, one thing is true. We cannot change facts. We can only interpret them. No different from the Bible. We interpret them. And sometimes our interpretation may be ill based on whatever condition we may have. And so, but you're correct, it's not taught. But it is an individual perspective that, as a teacher, I've seen it for over a decade.
But I agree, it is not taught, and that's the main point. Every time it's brought up in every school board meeting that it's actually taught, and it's not. So at least you agree that it's
So
not
I can
taught.
tell you this,
It
as a
is
representative,
It is
I've
sprinkled
seen it
throughout
teach.
textbooks, and they do it on purpose so that folks like you can say that it's not taught.
First of all, don't ever say folks like me, okay?
So I can tell you this.
Can you?
If anybody knows-
That it's not being taught? I mean, you're speaking.
But it's not,
And-
so
and-
look at
Whoa,
the
whoa, time
curriculum.
out.
Whoa, time out.
So I can tell you this. It
If
doesn't matter.
you
what
want to
the
have this
textbook-
discussion outside, this is candidates night. We're going to ask questions of the candidate, not have side debates on what's taught. So if you want to ask Jesus questions, please do
He's
that.
agreeing with them and he's saying it's not taught. I don't prove it that it's not being taught. We'll be happy, I guess. I don't know.
So the thing about social subjects, there is a point of view, there's a perspective that added besides of when it comes to facts. It's how we interpret them, and a lot of the times we even see it in court cases where, you know, the point is not the fact that, you know, the murder occurred, if you would, but the fact is, you know, some people will try to bring in the intent, and sometimes that intent may not be necessarily there, may not even exist, and it's misinterpreted. And you have people who will highly, especially people who believe in CRT, they will highly believe in the fact that when you look at the perspective of the individual, it's the intent that matters without us knowing the individual himself. And so some people will focus on that. We've seen it. I've seen it not just in the math, I've seen it in the social sciences. And I can tell you this, if anybody knows the textbook, I do. There are textbooks that do push it, I agree. And I can name multiple, every single textbook that's been accepted in the state of California, none that have been accepted in the state of Texas. There's a difference there in textbooks, and there's a reason why. And so if anybody will represent the site accurately, I can guarantee you it'll be me. I'm not going to push anything that I don't know. And I admit my facts, and I can prove them. But one thing is I cannot prove intent. And having to say that it's not taught, you're correct, it is not. It is the individuals that some will decide to focus on, and they will push it in the classroom. And my job as being part of the board is I'll make sure that when curriculum is taught, facts are taught. And they are the way they are. We as educators, we have to give every single student the ability to think critically for themselves. They have to choose. We don't think about them. I teach mathematics right now in Wilton. And I can tell you one thing. My job is to teach reason. And when I teach it, I don't care. I just like every single kid, I tell them, you can have wrong answers. We all make mistakes. We're humans about that. But one thing that's extremely important is that you're able to articulate and back up everything that you point out, because there is flawed logic. It's bad reasoning. And some people will agree with it. And flat earthers will say yes. And they'll try to use sciences to try to prove it. But I can guarantee you this, is that when I look at curriculum, I know that I don't just look at what exactly is taught and what is said on the book and how every teacher will focus on their own thing. But if you are going to teach something, you are going to teach it in such a way that provides every individual student to interpret it in their own way without having to censor them, cancel them, or shut them up. That's going to be important, because our world, as it is, I can tell you, every single one started focusing on technology. You've seen it. And the first thing they've said was, the knowledge is on their fingertips. And I can tell you one thing. In the past 10 years, knowledge has degraded. Research was lost. Some kids don't even know what an encyclopedia is. And so, why? Because they will look at sources. They will focus on an article, and it doesn't matter whether it's CNN or Fox. And whatever it says, they'll believe it to be true and concrete without having them to analyze it, without having them to say, you know what, I want to be able to see it myself. If it was Trump or if it was Biden who said something, I want to hear it. Because that's the ability we have to give every single child. We as teachers, we can't take it away from them. And I've seen it. More and more, we've taken away their individual liberty and we're now thinking for them. As a board member, I guarantee you that won't happen. And parents will always have a say. Because I have children. I don't keep secrets from them, and I don't expect for anybody to hold a secret from them too. And so I don't know if you agree with that philosophy. But if you do, I didn't do campaigning, I'll be honest. But talk to your neighbors. Go out and vote. And who you vote for, only you know. And so you make the right choice, the right call. Yes, sir.
A quick question, simple subject.
Yes, sir.
Actually, a two-part question. First part is, how did you ever wind up coming from Texas where it's warmer up to here? No, I'm on the border of Sussex, so we see people, we see people coming, and people are coming to the state. But when you turn on the TV, we're not one of the states that usually gets lit up as people are going there. And that's okay, I'm happy with that. But what brought you to New Hampshire?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'll tell you what, I miss Texas. My love is probably greater than the state itself. I came up not because I wanted to change the scenery. Texas has pretty much all of it. And it doesn't matter. It's one of the few states you can still drive 12 hours at 80 miles an hour and you're still inside the state. But I can tell you one thing. I came up because I don't hesitate to make choices for my family. I had a better paying job as a teacher in Houston. I took a $25,000 pay cut to come up here. And when I did, all it had to do is just, my wife had to tell me, my family has cancer. She has a small family, mom, dad, and sister, very well educated. Her sister is actually a doctor. And so she works in Rhode Island for Brown University. My father-in-law is a professor. And before that, he was a CFO. And my mother-in-law was something big as well.
Yeah, we have some pretty good.
And I can tell you that when I came up, that was the main reason why.
Yeah.
I did not want to settle in Boston. And so I chose the best state that I could find in Northeast, and that was New Hampshire.
This is the best state, I don't think it's
Yes, sir.
fine, wow. Okay, now the other question I have, which is even simpler, is, and I think I know your answer based on what you talked about. I I'm well into my 80s. I don't have any kids in the school.
Yes, sir.
It would be a biblical proportion if I did, okay?
I congratulate you.
But I'm very concerned about how young children are treated. This is what I see on TV, okay? You know, like the schools in Virginia, which created a bit of a revolution, okay? Transgender and that sort of stuff, the kids in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, I think is absolutely insane. It's nuts. It's evil, okay? And I don't want to, as a taxpayer,
Yes, sir.
pay for any of that. I don't want it to happen, period.
Well-
Okay, so I guess,
What would be my perspective on that? I can tell you this. Gender is a social theory, okay? It is a social theory that was first coined by John Money. And it doesn't change the fact. If we cannot give children the ability to have a beer and drive at the age of 15, if they don't have the ability to handle a handgun at that time and go off and just buy one, to make life choices is between the parent and them once they reach in adulthood that they're able to rationalize what exactly is that they're doing. Are there people out there that believe whatever they want to believe? And God knows. I respect them. I have a lot of friends that are in the left. I rarely have any friends in the right because in education it's very hard to find friends in the right. And so I understand their point of view. But when I make a choice, I don't make it based on emotion. You see, it's no different when we have somebody who commits a crime, and it could be the most gruesome and violent crime that there is in society. We have a place for them, and that's called prison. We don't modify everybody else's liberty to accommodate that person in society. Instead, we accommodate places for them in order for them to go in there. And when somebody is confused, I strongly believe that it's between them and the parent. I have teachers who don't want to say, it's like don't share the name, don't share their pronouns, don't share all these things with the parents. And God knows, if one day, if my children had something, I would want to know. I don't know if you have children.
Yeah, I do.
But I'm pretty sure that you would not. If they were gay, if they thought they were boys or women, whatever it is, how accepting you may be, I'm pretty sure that you would not want for a stranger at school, whether that be with as much confidence as a teacher, to keep it away from you.
Right,
as a
so
parent.
one thing, I actually have a husband and I have an adopted son. So my main point is to have my kids safe in a school. So if my son happens to say that he's transgender or something, I want somebody in the school to make sure that when he's in school, he's safe, right? My son
I
has
agree.
had issues with bullying because he has two dads since we moved into this town, which I think is a bunch of garbage, right? And the school did nothing until I had to go down and threaten to make sure that he was safe in school. So that's, when you talk about transgenders, I agree, that's between the child and the parent, but as a school board member, you should be making sure that that child is
Most
safe in
definitely.
school.
And this is the thing, it doesn't matter who you're married to, who's your grandfather. You could be a relative to someone who's colored folk, or you could be a relative to someone who belongs to the KKK. I could care less. Every child deserves a safe environment. And there is no reason for us to censor anybody's liberty for it. None. But keep in mind that when we measure something that even Ben Franklin said, when we measure safety, we cannot exchange our liberty for safety either. Because it is extremely important that every time we see it in history, it has fallen into bad hands. And I agree, no one should be bullied. And there are bad folk out there. I've seen more problems up here than I have in Texas. And you hear it in the news and you would think otherwise because everybody trashes the South. But I can tell you that that's not the case.
No, I live down south.
And so when we see something, it doesn't matter who it is, who they're married to, who their parents are. Every child should be safe. But it all starts at home, whether we agree with it or not. I have kids who are terribly disciplined. And it only takes one person before it begins to start to change the environment for everybody else. And it only takes one person before they start to bully someone else. It only takes one person to initiate it all. And you see, I 100% agree with you. I don't think there shouldn't exist. But because it does, we have to find a way to compromise, because we cannot take anybody's liberty just because we are hurt. Maybe perhaps there are different methods that we could use, and we could explore that as a board. But shutting it down and saying, no, you know what, we're going to have to remove that child from his education. You know what, just as much as a child who's being bullied, just as much as that's doing the bullying, they both have the right to their own liberty, to their own education, to their own pursuit of happiness. It does not change the fact. And we have to treat it as such. We cannot give one priority over another one. As much as we may agree with one and not with the other. It doesn't change it. But I agree, we have to find ways to be able to fulfill that area of need. And if that need is for them to feel safe, but safety is felt based on one's emotion. And a lot of the times, that safety is not at school. A lot of the times it starts at home, and I've seen it. Where they have problems at home and they believe that it just follows them on to no matter where they go, whether it's a friend's house or it's at school. But as a school board, we have to maintain a line between giving every parent and every family their own privacy as well. We cannot infringe on someone else's just because we don't like their parenting, just because we have to maintain a fine line. I know what it is to be a teacher. For over 10 years, I've been getting the worst kids in Houston. I've taught in every single school that I've taught is a Title I school. And I can tell you this, it's as challenging as they may be, I deal with them. And I still don't kick them out of my class. But we have to find a fine line. And that's something that I will be able to bring in. What exactly is the balance? Because I've seen school boards really go off the hinges. I've seen them go off the rails. And the first thing they want to do is they want to call, I don't know what they call it here, CPS and every single law enforcement they could find so that they can remove the child because they don't agree with the way you parent. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Boy, I can tell you one thing. I may not. People may not agree with the way I treat my children. But they're my children and they're mine until the age of 18. Just like yours will be yours. And that's something that we as a board have to be able to bring in. We have to find a fine line. We have to be able to find education for them. And there's a difference between long-term education and early education and child care. Because our job is not to take care of children for other people who decide to have children. Our job is to educate them when they cannot be educated themselves by their parents. And so I've seen it, especially in some of the classes, we have plenty of Spanish teachers down in the South. And I've seen it where you just open a classroom and you toss every kid in there that you don't want. You do it for the computer sciences, you do it for every class that you can. You toss them in there because that is your dumping ground. You don't want to deal with them, they're never going to change. And I don't believe in that. But there has to be a fine line that we walk. I know what teachers want. I know what parents want. And I know exactly what the student needs. You can vote for anybody else if you like. But I can guarantee you that no one's going to represent your child better than I am. Because I've been in those trainings. And I'll tell you what, those trainings, some trainings, especially when we go back to CRT, they don't get worse in big cities like Houston. But if you want somebody to speak for you, then I will be your mountain. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll change gears and give you an easy subject.
Yes, sir.
The town has one of the highest tax rates in school, at 17%.
I
As
don't
a
agree
school
with
board
that.
member, how would you balance the budget with cutting in mind, with providing a quality education and a decent pay scale for our teachers so we can retain good teachers?
I think a lot of the times up here, that's why I'm not a big fan of unions. But I'll tell you one thing. Like there are people that do feel more confident teaching, knowing that they have a legal background to whatever they need to do. Never once have I been in trouble that I feel the need that I have to bring in an attorney. And trust me, I am not the best teacher. I know that we could always use, everybody could use better, more progress, better improvement skills somehow, somewhere. And I know that. I don't go home and take my books and take my papers and grade. No, I go home and I'm a husband and I'm a father. I'm not a teacher. And that's what I tell my kids. You turn in your stuff now, I'll grade it now. But I'm not taking anything home. I have a fine line. I don't agree with charging more taxes and more taxes and more taxes, increasing the funding over and over again without having to do a proper analysis and evaluation of what exactly are the resources and what exactly could be used and what could be cut. And there are teachers who are not going to like it, because you may need to limit the amount of quantity of papers, because we've moved on. Even though they really want to promote individualism, the majority of the teachers, it's worksheet after worksheet after worksheet after worksheet, and you give them the computer and then you give them other things, and they keep doing bad things. They don't keep learning. So we have to find a way to be able to integrate life skills that they're going to use, whether it's in the traits or something else. We need to be able to integrate them. And do I agree with just having high tax cuts? No, sir. I think we need to, I'm sorry, but we need we need to cut more taxes. We do, I'll be honest, we looked around the area, and you're correct. You guys are some of the highest. And there has to be a way for us to be able to look at the budget, sit down, and be able to find compromise. And compromise, just like Ronald Reagan said, there's going to be people who are just, you've reached it when nobody's happy. And that's exactly what it is. Yes, sir.
Quick question on class size. When I went to school, the ladies had 25 to 30 of us in a classroom, and it worked. If I'm correct in what I've heard, the school here is like 8 or 9
Yes, sir.
kids.
I
That's absurd. in my
I-
mind.
I can tell you this. There has to be, from the board, there has to be a bigger demand on discipline. There has to be a bigger demand on discipline. We have to be
Mrs. Thompson
stricter.
lifted me up
And the
so
reason
against
behind-
the wall.
Well, because it's very simple. You get to a point where you have to be able to implement disciplinary action in order for you to maintain order. And class sizes, I come from Houston. I had my last class size in teaching science, I had 43 students. If I could handle 43, I'm not saying they're going to get 43.
They live in the right
But-
place.
But having 8 is definitely, you could use teachers and better resources. We don't have to cut classes. If you increase the class size by a small margin, no more than 20, 25, or 33%, given the sizes that there are right now. If you were to increase it by a small margin, you could make teachers access free in such a way that they would be able to teach other courses. And if you are paying a supplemental for them to be able to go get educated, don't pay them to go get educated on a degree that it's going to be useless. There's plenty of teachers that are willing to go and get some kind of trade and come back and teach it to the community, if that's the case. And so we need to be able to encourage teachers to get degrees, rather than having them to go on through child development degree and a master's or a PhD and some kind of other education degree. We need to be able to push more towards something that the school is going to use. We could use a wood shop. We could use a master mechanic. And if you already have a master mechanic, we could use a master electrician. And we need to push those courses for those kids. And we need to make them accessible. Boy, stop. Give it to me. Okay. So we need to be able to push more towards not just go get yourself a master's and become a principal. We don't need that. No, we're focusing on what the school needs, and we shouldn't be focusing on what the school needs. We should be focusing on what the community needs, because we are the community and we're servicing the community. The community doesn't need more taxes. The community doesn't need more junk courses. They don't need some, if you can offer a class like Greek mythology, if you would, and you want to have them go in and enjoy themselves, it should be a treat for them if they really enjoy it. But we need to tackle the essentials. But just like we can provide Greek mythology for the kid who wants to treat himself in education by reading a book, we have to be able to treat those who want to become electricians. We have to treat those who want to go out and get some skills like welding. We have to treat those kids too. It shouldn't be just the books. I was a rancher most of my whole life. And I can tell you one thing. I liked reading. Because it was my way of getting away from work. But once I started teaching, I needed breaks. I wish I was a rancher then. Because every single time I could just easily go outside and get some fresh air, no matter how much it smelled like manure. It felt, it just smelled like freedom. And so we need to be able to provide treats for every single child. But in order for us to do that, there are ways for us to be able to start bringing in classes, increasing the class size, even though it's going to be a small margin. And there will be teachers who are not going to be happy. And at that point, we should ask ourselves, it's not about retaining the teacher. We want to retain teachers who want to teach. We don't want to retain teachers. We don't want to force them. We don't want to twist their hand. We don't want to keep them there just because we need somebody. It'll take time to improve, but it has to start now. And you want to keep teachers who want to give part to the community, not just teachers who want to be able to come in and you want to force somebody to stay there by paying them more, and it doesn't matter the quality that you get. So I can tell you this, I know a good teacher from a bad teacher. And I know what we need, both in the kids, and the community, and at the school. And so a lot of the times we focus too much on the school. What does the school needs? What does the school needs? Look, if you can't run a business and it's not profitable, boy, you have a problem. And so, simple as that. You can't just keep getting more and more. But there has to be someone with rational mind to be able to come in and say, you know what? It's the matter that the school is there to service the community. And I can tell you this, I would be that voice for New Ipswich.
I have a question, because you just talked about retaining teachers.
Yes, sir.
And I know you said you just moved during the summer.
Yes, sir.
But were you aware that during the summer, we lost so many teachers in the high school that there weren't even any science teachers until just, so how would you then retain teachers or get new teachers to come to New Ipswich if we're already losing so many teachers? So you just
You're
said
correct.
increasing class sizes, but class sizes is proportional to the population of students. We're not telling teachers you can only take 8 students. If there's only 8 students taking AP history or AP chemistry, that's all that's going to be in there. You can't force 30. I come from a big city. I grew up in New York City. There was 40 kids in my class, all through elementary, high school, and so forth. But that's because there was millions of people where I grew up.
Correct.
So the class size is not indicative of forcing a teacher to take.
No, I agree. And when if you're not going to tackle the problem by asking the critical questions of why is that teacher leaving? There are good teachers that leave. I was one of the teachers who left my previous school at some point. And it was not because I was a bad teacher. It was because I was tired of the micromanagement. So we do have to provide them autonomy. We do have to be able to look at them and say, you know what, nobody wants to work inside an office when you have a boss over their shoulder, seeing what they're doing, nitpicking everything they do. Like, you don't want to be able to do that. And so you have to be able to acknowledge what's the reason that they're leaving. But if what they're leaving is a class size, I've seen teachers who have only 3 kids in their science class. That shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening because the first thing we should be asking is, why aren't more kids taking that class? And is there a better way to utilize that teacher as a different resource? There's many ways that you can tackle a problem. You don't have to necessarily just tackle it one single way. And so, but again, if you're going to keep teachers just because you're going to pay them more, just because you're in desperate need, you know what? There's going to be times where you're going to have to ask yourself, you know what? My truck ain't working. I'm going to have to walk, because a lot of the times that's going to be better than pushing. halfway through. And that's exactly what's happened. I got a call from a cynic, and I did not take the math position. And I didn't take it because I keep my word, and I had already promised, Mr. Weaver, I already promised Peter that I was going to teach there in Wilton. Despite everybody telling me, well, they pay more, we keep our words. And that I can guarantee you. If I give you my word on something, I will keep it. And you know what? A lot of the times, things just don't get accomplished. But if I'm going to fight, I fight. We don't just let things go. But you have to ask yourself critical questions of, why do we have a shortage? And if no one has asked why do we have a shortage, if board members aren't going into the school, and I don't mean to be able to nitpick anything, to be able to look at everything, no, but you as a board member, you have to be able to go in. If you know what, if you're a boss, and you don't go into your office and see what people are doing, and you don't even have to evaluate them on their job, you just have to ask them, how are you feeling? I guarantee you that makes a huge difference. At one of the schools that I was in, we implemented by just providing them with coffee. That's all we did. From having a 30 to 32 teachers turnover every single year, we brought it down to about 16. Because you know what? It doesn't matter how crappy your day was. You could always walk into the school and grab a cup of joe, and you could go get ready to start teaching. You didn't have to worry about anything else. We at least provided you with something as a form of gratitude. So we have to find ways to be able to ask ourselves, what? I don't know if board members walk their schools. I guarantee you I will. I look at buildings. I'm a certified safety professional. And I like to make sure that people are safe in those buildings. I want to make sure that people feel comfortable who they work with. A lot of the times people just won't be comfortable because you've been in schools. It's sometimes teachers, it's just a competition for them. Who's more popular than others? And you can't change that. You can't change who they are. And yet at that point, if they want to leave, you have to ask yourself, is that really who I want to keep? Someone who wants to keep challenging. They don't challenge themselves on improving kids' lives, but they want to challenge themselves on who's more popular. And so, yeah, you'll have to make choices. And they'll be hard. I don't have a problem with that. But you have to look at every single perspective that you can. And so don't just retain things just because you have to stick with them. Everybody needs a roof over their head. But you don't want to be inside dump just because you need it. And so I think we have to make that choice in the school board. Does anybody have any?
I do. So in reference to what we were just discussing here, so State Rep Shane Setaway, by the way. So I've been contacted by many parents, many teachers in this town, from all schools. Number one complaint, as far as job retention goes, and I think it relates to that, is the fact that teachers are not able to do their job. Because, and you already spoke in favor of kind of like mixed classrooms, where you have children that are ready and able to learn, mixed with kids that have behavioral problems, that can't behave during class, and then some that have disabilities. And so the teachers are forced to deal with the behavioral issues, and other kids that need a little bit more attention, and the kids that are ready and willing to learn are twiddling their thumbs. I think that is definitely playing into the job retention issue, because I've been contacted by teachers, and so what seems to be happening now is to kind of like, excuse me, to help that problem is they're being given like an extra helper, like a paraprofessional or whatever.
Yeah.
But now they're both dealing with the behavioral issues, and and the kids are still twiddling their thumbs. I mean, if I was a teacher, I went to school to do this, to teach children. I'm not able to do that. I'm gonna go to Milford. I'm gonna go to wherever.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think. I apologize for interrupting you. I don't know if you were done.
No, that's good.
But I think it's important that we have strict policies in place that if we say we're going to do something, we keep it. We keep our word. And we need to be able to provide discipline. And I don't mean just suspending kids. Because at the end of the day, those kids are gonna be out in your neighborhood. Those kids are gonna be in their house. Those kids, and a lot of the times we say, well, you know what, we're willing to burn one rather than having to burn the whole school. But the reality is, we have to be humane as well. And so, but I think that one way we can tackle that problem is by bringing the parent. And it may be very different. In Texas, you cannot expel a kid. But it may be necessary that you may have to provide a shift. If you can make people more available, for example, teachers, right? You increase classes by 20%. You free one teacher. Well, people see that it's just a free teacher. There's people like me who will see an English teacher and say, you know what, you have the potential in writing, and we can use it for grants. We need to be able to utilize their skills. But I agree, there are classes where you can't even teach. I've seen it.
Yeah, and right now we seem to be in this trend where we make excuses for all kinds of
Oh,
different
yes, sir.
things. It's not right to call a kid out and hold him to task, you know, and that's wrong. We're in this spiral, and it's horrible. We need to do that. But there is a program that I implemented. I used to be subcontracted by the state of New Hampshire and work within schools to problem solve issues like this.
Correct.
And so there is a program that I won't get into right now that's very effective, and it's not happening here. But I would like to have a conversation. I haven't reached out to school board, but I've been meaning to. So here's where I'm starting, is with picking the next candidate.
No, I agree with you. Look, I come from Texas. Every high school has a school within a school. My first year working was in Hope Academy. And Hope Academy was called Hope because it was their last hope.
Oh, wow.
We had we had 12-foot fences outside. We would knock on one door and have the kids come out in a straight line and go into the next door. And so, if you would see them from the outside, you would not think it was a public school. But you know what? Sometimes, as bad as that sounds, sometimes that's exactly what you have to do. It doesn't matter how humane you want to be, but I think that the parent has to be brought in, because a lot of the times, those kids, if the parent can't fix it, then we have to fix it. We can't just leave it as is, and no, we can't. And as a someone that is a strong believer of schools within schools, sometimes that's where you start. You pick those 5 kids who are the worst troublemakers, and you limit the amount of choices they can make, and you restrict their freedom until they get to cherish it. Because that's exactly what society does to you when you don't do the right thing. And then you put them in, and you let everybody else be fruitful. And at the end of the day, they will choose to either be fruitful themselves or they won't. And so, but I'm a strong believer of school within schools. It's something that I don't think, because at the end of the day, that child is essential for the school to run. I don't know how funding works here. I come from Texas, where the state funds the school based on attendance. And so, yeah, so I don't know how it works here. But coming from that, that's my perspective. But if they're not essential, then discipline shouldn't be a problem. And if it is a problem, then the question you should be asking yourselves, who the hell did you guys vote for? Because that's a problem. It's no longer the school board, but the people who voted them in. But under me, there shouldn't be a problem. You should be able to tackle it front, because there's nothing to it. You have to be able to say, you know what, if one child is disrupting a class of 12, those are 12. And we don't accommodate society for that individual. We do the opposite. We have accommodated places for them. And that's something that's essential. You can't deprive everybody from their education, and you can't deprive them from their liberties just because one person. You can't. I'm not going to tolerate my child to be in a class where you have one kid and then everybody has to suffer because of that one child. No. I'm not going to tolerate it. As a parent, I wouldn't tolerate it. As a school board member, I wouldn't tolerate it. Something would have to be done. And it may be that I'm the only one who votes against it, but that's that point that you guys would have to ask yourselves, are you guys going to be voting for the other people the other way around? Like, simple as that. You look at rural Texas, you don't have discipline issues. And this is a rural town. So why do you?
All right, let's
Yes, sir. Let the other people. Yes, sir.
get some more airtime.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
It was awesome.
Mike Pellerito, would you like to say a few things?
I would. I wish you would stay, because I hope to answer some of the same questions you all gave Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Bob, for moderating tonight. Thank you, Selectmen, for hosting us, and thank you for the folks who are going to be watching later as we record this and give everyone the opportunity in town to watch on Channel 22 what our candidates stand for school board. My name's Mike Pellerito. I'm currently serving in my second term as a school board member for New Ipswich, and I want to serve again. I want to serve this community, and I'm going to briefly outline my experience and my vision going forward, which I believe qualifies me best to continue on the school board, serving you, serving this community, serving our children. So I did. I've spent a lot of time thinking over the last. I decided to run a few months ago again for my third term. There's more work to be done. Why should this town vote for me again? Why should I be allowed the honor to serve this community? It comes down to what I've been able to accomplish as part of a school board team. Our board is a team effort. What I've been able to accomplish, where our district is going, the positive changes we've done, and I believe my skill sets give me a leadership advantage, helping this board be successful for all of our students and for the community. A little bit about myself, if you don't know me. I was born and raised in upstate New York, rural community. Both my parents are teachers. Community very similar to this one. After graduating school as an industrial engineer, and I moved to New Hampshire in 1995, roughly 28 years ago. Started a career at what's now called BAE Systems, defense contractor in Nashua. Been there 28 years, great career, great company. We build products that support our warfighters, help families, help warfighters come home to their families. No greater honor than the career I've chosen. But that career has, when I started, we moved to New Ipswich, my wife and I with my two stepsons in 2004, over 18 years ago. And a year later, my son was born, and at that time we said, this is a great community and we love the stars at night, but let's get involved. We're gonna make roots here. So I started attending deliberative sessions. I started going to budget hearings. Over a year before I actually served on the board, I was going to school board meetings, learning what can I do, how can I be involved. Going back 18 years, the schools had a reputation in this area of that was a little bit concerning. So let's get involved in our community was my thought. And as of 6 years ago, I decided to run for school board. As I was attending the school board meetings for over a year before I was elected, I said, hey, my skill sets that I use at BAE Systems, running multi-million-dollar programs, mentoring teams, getting teams to get things done, using government funds and being highly accountable for the use of those funds. It's very similar to what we do on the school board and what the administration is charged with. So that skill set I thought was a great mix, and it turns out I feel it has benefited me over these last 6 years. So what have we done over these last 6 years while I was been on the board? Again, it's a team situation. We've been fiscally conservative. We had 4 years in a row of less than 1% increases in the budget, and that's as costs have been increasing every time. One of the first, I recall distinctly my first year as on a school board member looking at our budget. We look at management contingencies. Why are we holding all these contingencies? We were able to start cutting right away, and we were able to absorb and start paying and retaining more teachers, more giving them better contracts and helping that retention problem by cutting costs along the way. It's been very successful. We've, in the last 6 years, the board has we've revamped our business office. We have a new superintendent who is highly qualified, highly passionate, is a great asset to this community. She loves her work. And even before that, we were working with people. And Dr. Martin has brought on members of our team that the board helped evaluate. And running a business, the school board is a $20 million business. And it's a business that's responsible for my money, for your money. We know that, and we're responsible for the safety of children and giving them a high quality education. Very important work. We can't just step into this role. You have to be ready to serve and be ready to contribute and people's careers, lives, and the future of our children's at stake with what we do every day. This isn't something you just walk into, in my opinion. So we've brought technology into our school systems. I'm very proud that even going back 5 or 6 years, we were slowly planning, integrating Chromebooks as what we use for our students to have laptops. And there was a need 2 years ago when the pandemic hit us and caused craziness for us all. We needed our students to have computers. We were already there. We were virtually at 1-to-1 already. There was other districts that were panicking, trying to find laptops for their kids to work remote. We didn't have to do that because we prepared, we thought ahead, and we planned, all the while being conservative and having less than 1% increases in our budget. So over the last few years, I've served on the negotiations committee. I've served on revamping our stipends for the district. I've served on the advisory budget committee as it was first established very soon after I took the board. So I have many experiences on many different facets of running the board and going forward. So that's some of what I've done. In the interest of time, I'll leave it at that. But we've also, we can't just take all of our money to make the students. So we actively seek out grants. We've been able to, some of the questions that were asked of Jesus earlier, right? How do we deal with some of the problems of our schools? We've been using grant money. We've brought on behavioral specialists. We've brought on social workers, and we've done things to address it. Our new principal at the high school this year is addressing many of the problems we talked about in the last half hour, and she's wonderfully motivated and the best person for that job. I'm so happy to have her serving, moving up from our middle school. We promoted from within to bring her to the high school. And I think you're going to start seeing a huge difference from what her work is going forward. So this last 6 years have been busy. The last 2 or 3 extremely busy as a school board member. So that's what we've done. But we can't live in the past. Part of this being on a school board is looking forward. The school board has one employee. That's the superintendent. The superintendent is in charge of the administration. We, of course, have oversight, and we work hand in hand with the superintendent, and all school board members spend time in the schools when they can, spend time with the administration office, and we have our meetings twice a month. We have strategy sessions when we can on the budget sessions, but we need to do more, and we need to keep moving forward. So as a board member, your key aspect is the day-to-day is the superintendent runs, and we have oversight. We walk the halls and make sure everything is good when we have our time, but what are we doing as a board to facilitate 5 years from now, 10 years from now? That's the most important vision of an executive leadership team, is to have that vision, to look forward. How can what's out there in front of us? What's happening in 5 years? We need to continue to keep looking at cuts and managing our class sizes every year. But if you look at, I have a few copies from our deliberative session a few weeks ago, and there's some really great data in there, and of course the package is also available on our website. But we've been going on a curve. We've cut a lot over the last 5 years, but you could constantly cut and you could constantly reevaluate things. But the time has come for the board to do a new strategy. What about the other side of the books? What about revenue? What about more grants? What about business educational partnerships? We have a very high-tech business in town that builds bulletproof vests. They should be involved in our schools, providing services. Companies love to do that. We need to be reaching out. How can we fix the game? How can we lower our taxes? you know, we need to partner with our local New Hampshire delegations and our selectmen. How can we increase our tax base in this town? How can we welcome more people to our town while retaining the character of our town? Which many of us have moved here and grown to love it, and then other people have lived their whole lives here. So it's the time to look at it from a different point of view. Not you know, we don't always want to keep on the same methodology going forward. So, Brian.
What I have a real problem with is, and I just wanna use a little example. If you took one person on a fishing trip on a boat, it costs a lot. If you take 20 people on a little bit bigger boat, it should be a lot less per person. Why do we never get bulk rate with public schools? It's about $20,000 per student. It seems like we could close a school and send them all to private school and do it a lot cheaper. Why is it so outrageous? We never get bulk rate. You talk about tax decreases? I'd like to see one.
We spend around $17K per student, 17.5 if I remember, and we are below the state average in this town, and like many of the other districts around this town have. I don't study their books, I study our books, but it seems like their budgets have gone up more than ours, and we take credit for some good planning on my part. So we are around 17K. And a lot of that, and we get around 3,500 in adequacy funding from the state, and that's the formula how our state funding works. Jesus wasn't aware of how our funding scenario works, but the state funds $3,500 per student, you know, regardless on where we are around the state.
But wherever the money comes from, it's still costing X
Yes.
amount per student. It doesn't matter if you're taking it over this pot or this pot, it still costs this much. Whereas a private school only costs this much.
Doesn't it
I
not
think
matter how many kids we have? I mean, you have to run the building, you have to pay the teachers.
Yeah, to a point, you're correct. If we have fluctuations of 20, 30 students, you know, your fixed costs and your overheads, you know, we're not moving needles. We know when students change very, very smallly, but 73% of our budget this year is salaries and benefits. Another salaries and benefits, all for planning, you know, investments in our future of our children. I love my child, I love everyone's child. Jesus and I sound like we have that in common. We love all children no matter where they came from. We need to give them the best opportunity we can that we can afford. So we have salaries, we have benefits, and we've over the last few years, like I said, we've been whittling our budget down. We've had contingencies in our budgets in the past for healthcare, for education for our teachers, and we've addressed that by doing smart things, making smart choices, smart business decisions.
So why is it more expensive to send your kid to a public school than it is to a private school or a charter school?
I don't think it was for me personally.
I went to private school. It's about $50,000 a semester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here.
Really?
Private
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah, I couldn't.
It depends on the private school. Church schools get by on like 10 grand a year or less.
And a lot of them aren't accountable to the same standards we are, which
And the children get a better
accountability is very
Would the
education.
accountability be statewide though? Doesn't matter if it's,
So our cost is 17K per student. My taxes are around $5,000 in this town. And so my tax, that's when I combine my municipal and school taxes. I don't think I could send my child to school for $5,000 to a private school. Can anyone? in here?
No, but that's
No, we're talking about,
cumulative.
You're
we're talking about what the town as a whole is spending. We're saying that rather than paying this money, because as what I understand is the town pays $800,000 a month to the schools, okay? And there doesn't seem to be much accountability from what I'm seeing, okay? So,
I'm sorry you don't see
not
that.
on this side, okay? So, my thing is, rather than just sending the money there, we could send each and every kid here to private school and spend less as a town and allow parents to send kids where they want to send them.
I don't think the math works out in your scenario there. You know, there's transportation costs to pay for, how are you gonna get your kids to school?
No. See, you keep saying, the thing is, it's about responsibility. Let the parents send them where they want to send them. You know, you give them a voucher, here you go, you spend it, you send your kid wherever. It would be cheaper to educate them that way than what we're doing now. It's very, very expensive. The cost per child is.
We gotta hit one issue at a time. Any voucher plan I've seen out of the state legislature will not cover the cost of a private education. It'll cover a part of it. So if you can't, so it's not choice for all, it's choice for those who can afford it, but get a little discount when they get a voucher. So I don't support vouchers coming from the state as a solution to this problem.
I'm talking
She's talking many
taxes.
topics, yes.
I'm talking about taxes. So my thing is, why not strive to get the cost much, much lower? Because it doesn't make sense to me. There's not that many kids in this town, or combined with the other kids here, and it's just outrageous the amount that's being spent. And
I don't find it
how many of
outrageous.
those
It's for an
children?
investment for children.
What are their scores, and what are their matriculation rates into college? You know, if these kids are going to college or they're going to a trade school, are they able to go right in, or do they need remedial classes?
44.5% of our kids last year went to a 2 to 4 year school. Some
And
say
we
that's
graduate.
nice, some say we should have more of that. Many more folks went to the workforce, taking advantage of our CTE training. There's many options for our students. It's our job to provide for all of our students.
Right, but what I'm saying is, where are the students after they leave this school? You know? You must have some.
Our mission statement is to make them lifelong learners and ready to be
What
productive
about
people in
children
society.
with disabilities? I'm
Okay.
not talking, excuse me, physical, but children who have behavioral issues, find it difficult to learn. Like I have a nephew who fits all those categories.
Okay.
As far as the education he's getting here in town, I can't say anything about it, cause I'm not impressed.
Okay.
At all.
At all. And he's been in the school system probably for about 7 years now. So I guess my question is, how come the school doesn't stand behind the parents for children like that? My nephew has had to go and get all the help all on his own with no help from the school.
Okay,
So
I
things
hope
like
to-
that, I'm just curious. That kind of stuff should be in place to help the parents who wanna help their children.
But he did say that they brought in behavioral this and social workers
Right.
and whatnot, so.
Well, my nephew's not benefiting.
So I'll answer your question. There's a question there. So you know, we have a special ed department. We're by law we're required to provide for every student in our district regardless of their needs. And if a student's needs cost X, Y, or Z, we're required by law to pay for it. If you're not getting and every student in these situations has an individual educational plan, an IEP, and I know for a fact that the goal of the special ed department under Ms. TV-Paw is to work with the parents with those IEPs, and if you're not satisfied, you should be working up through the teacher, through the administration.
I think
and come to
they've
the
been
board.
trying, but they're getting nowhere real quick. I mean, he spends a lot of time in the principal's office, or he gets thrown out of school for a few days. They don't benefit in that kind of scenario. There's gotta be another route to take. I mean, granted, kids with behavioral issues, they need special care, if you will.
We did bring home, with grant funding, we brought in a behavioral analysis to
I wonder
address
if
these
she's
issues.
meeting with any of the students, because my son seems to be having struggles, and I haven't heard about him meeting with a behavioral specialist once. And I've been in this school many times, and all I hear is them getting handed packets every day in school. Packets. No teachers are teaching anything, they're handing them packets.
Well, where is you with the
I'll look
parents
into
about stepping forward and asking that question?
I do.
She just said she's in the school.
And what I have, so I feel like there's an imbalance here. If we're having IPEs for individual kids and all these kids, then discipline is not gonna be the answer, which which is what I heard from Jesus.
Right.
But.
I don't
when we
think he
have-
meant discipline in the respect
Okay,
of.
but when we have individual plans like this for every kid, don't our costs end up going up?
They will, but we're required by law
By law. Now
to
that
cover
brings
that
us
for our
back full
students.
circle to why sometimes it gets so expensive.
But it's
But the funny thing is,
It's-
it's so
so if you're
expensive, but we're
spending
not getting the
100,000, you
services
only
that
have
we say we're
2,000
getting.
Exactly.
students, it's 20,000 students.
Right.
If you have 2,000 students,
You
it's
may
way
have the
less.
people
So
in place,
it's
but
the
they're not
Sean, you've had your hand up a while.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
I gotta go.
So,
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question, multi-tiered essentially, because you brought up a couple points in your opening, like your introduction, where at one point you said you work hand in hand with the superintendent, and then also that you have oversight of her and say in what she does. My experiences with that relationship aren't necessarily that. It seems like you're more of a part of one of her hands, the school board, and not free thought and representing the community and speaking on behalf of the community. And that's how I view the school board's role, is to bring the community to the district, like to bring it to the SAU level.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that happening. And part of that has to do with the declining enrollment and some of the behavioral issues that I believe some of the students are having in our schools have to do with the fact that the curriculum doesn't translate to the community. So to me, it seems like the current school board fabric doesn't represent the community adequately, and there isn't enough voice from the school board stating this and changing our curriculum or enhancing the different types of classes that are offered to our students.
Okay. We're a 5-member school board, and we're diverse, which is good. We come from different backgrounds. We live in town. My colleague from Greenville comes from the Brazers Union. He's a retired man. He brings a lot to the table. My colleagues from New Ipswich have children in the district, and they're highly tied in with the community. I'm tied in with the community, and our job as elected officials is to bring our aspects of the community and our personal creativity and our experience, to the role of being the board of the school district. And the superintendent is our employee. We hold her to high standards. The 5 of us collaborate on her review, on her objectives. She statuses her objectives to us periodically. So I feel the board, we're not a 1-person board, we're a 5-person board. I feel, and it's only a 1 point trend right now, but enrollment went up last year. So it could be a trend soon. Sean, did you have a follow-up? I want to be fair.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
answer your question.
Well, it's just, in my experience, it's been quite different, and these are some of the things that I hope to address with the school board.
I do too. The last 2 years, we haven't had a strategic planning meeting at the school board, and I keep asking for it. I keep asking for the school board to reach out to our local delegations and to the selectmen. Like I said, I can't decrease the tax base as a school board member by bringing new businesses or improving the internet service in our town, so we can do that. But I can partner with people who can, and that's what I want us to do.
Well,
I want us
I'm
to work
looking
with.
forward to those meetings
I
hopefully
am
coming
too.
up, and I'm glad to hear that, you're in favor of,
I'm in
being
favor.
a part of those meetings.
Because it's got to be a team effort. The
It
school
does.
board can't do it all. The select board
But
can't do it all.
unfortunately, all roads seem to lead, to one person, and it's the superintendent.
Mhm.
And she has eroded the school board's authority and their teeth.
Hmm.
From my perspective, because I have
Okay.
a few little side projects that I'm working on, because the school board has gotten shot down from the superintendent to the degree where the busing company doesn't even want to make a decision without first consulting our superintendent, which is unheard of, absolutely unheard of.
Yeah, we have a contract. I'd be interested in those examples because the school board and the
Rachel's aware
superintendent.
of some of them, because she's been, has handed some stuff off, so.
I'm glad. I'm sorry she hasn't brought those to the whole board to discuss as a team.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with, you say that your $5,000 tax bill wouldn't pay for private schools with the kids you have. The reason why is because there's a lot of people in town that are paying taxes and have no kids. If you had only the people paying that had kids, your taxes would be a whole lot higher.
That's true.
Yeah, 'cause I pay almost twice that.
I happily paid my taxes without when I didn't, in Nashville, when I didn't have
No,
school.
but the
at
point
time.
is, you're making it sound like it's cheap with your taxes, but that's because other people are paying taxes, they have no kids. That's why your taxes are where they are.
True in every community, sir. Yep.
It's true in every community in our
Yes,
nation.
but it-
We
you're making
contribute
it
to make our
sound like
nation a
it's
better
cheap
spot.
for a student, but it isn't when you take the fact that a lot of other people are subsidizing you for your kids that don't have.
Thank you.
But somebody subsidized when you were.
I hope my son, I hope my son will.
But it's not cheap.
Okay.
But
Next
it's not
question.
cheap. It's not cheap like it's making it
Next
sound.
question.
The positions that you created with the, funds from the state, that will pay it to a certain point.
Mhm.
Are you letting those people go after that money runs out, or is that, will we find that in our taxes?
At some point, they'll have to be, they'll have to be rolled into our budget, but it's part of our 5-year planning. 9% of our budget right now is currently our bond payment. The bond payment is done in 4 years. That's just one example.
Yeah.
So 9% of our budget, roughly a few hundred K, not a lot, is still going to that bond payment for 4 years, but that's part of running a business. That expense goes away, we are able to invest with grant funds, and then those grant funds are holding us off for a period of time so we can plan for it.
Right.
So we can plan to continue those services, and if those services become not needed, then we make those adjustments.
Sounds like they are needed, but
They
how
are.
much is the bond payment? Ballpark.
9% of 20 million.
Look at Sean, you got
You
that.
can look at it there, the whole budget.
Wait, I have glasses.
Tina.
I don't remember exactly.
So you just said running a business, as in the school system is like a business, okay? So, business is my background. I've been in the accounting field my whole career, and except for one stint, it's always been in private businesses. And the mantra always is, do more with less. And we make cuts, and to the bone, to make a profit and still run. But I don't see that ever done in government. Government, because you're taking everybody's money, and essentially it doesn't hurt you because it's not really your money, you're spending other people's money.
Yeah.
Whereas in a real business, we're spending our money, period. So, like you just talked about, you've hired these people on, with grants. And then when the grant runs out, then what? Well, it seems to me that you should already be thinking ahead for their funding, not to be from us.
I gave you an
But
example. of how I'm
no,
thinking ahead.
you need to go back to that grant and say, hey, we need money for them again. And if you don't,
It isn't, it was a COVID thing. That grant was a COVID thing.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, great, so that's really going away.
So the bond matures.
So we used to have
in
French and we
2026.
cut it, we didn't have enough students.
Mhm.
My son took French 1, he can't take French 2 anymore. Did I force it down the superintendent to keep French so my student,
You know
but it
what?
made us a good decision.
I've been taking Spanish with a free app online, and your son could take Spanish too, or French. They have every language, they have German, Latin, everything.
I know. During the
So-
pandemic, I heard a lot how people want people in the classroom as a better way to be educated than
I
in
agree.
front of a computer. So, so that doesn't quite just what you just said.
So the-
Question, Jason?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the parental rights bills that I believe the House was supposed to hear today, the House and Senate? Also, last year, that were put before them and failed. And it's all about what we're seeing in the news every day about schools and how parents are being treated. And you're seeing the passion here today.
Yeah,
You
I
guys
have the
You
same
guys are
passion.
smack in the middle of the culture war.
Yeah. So parental rights are important. It's your child who's in our custody to remain safe and have a great education. So I maintain parents have the rights to work for their students' education, to work with our teams, to work with our teachers, to work with our administrations, our counselors. And if you're and there is an escalation path if you're not getting the proper service to end with the school board. So parental rights are key. I'm not familiar with the details of that bill or what rights, if it grants a new right.
Should a school be able to withhold information from a parent, like was brought up, I don't know, with the last candidate? So if there's a pronoun that the student tells the teacher, I want to be this pronoun, but don't tell mom and dad, should the school be able to keep that a secret from the parents?
Absolutely not.
No, I'm asking the
No,
candidate.
I don't think so. Right. If my son's name is Alexander, and if he wants to be called Alex in school, his teacher doesn't have to tell me he has to be called Alex. So
No.
you know,
You're talking about a nickname versus a gender
I'm
pronoun.
talking about something much more serious, and you know I am. You know what I'm talking about because it's in the news every single day.
yeah, we seek. You know, we're. If somebody, you know, that gender issue hasn't come up in our schools, and we would seek to accommodate. I don't support revamping our facilities, you know, and expending costs to revamp this as something that you're referring to.
And I guess I'm more looking for the philosophical approach that you would have as a school board member. Would you, if it was left up to the school board, we're gonna make a decision, if Joey comes to the teacher and says he wants to be whatever, but doesn't want mom and dad to know, are we going to allow that level of secrecy being kept?
You know, privacy laws are not my thing, but I don't see that as a problem. I don't think our teachers should keep secrets from our parents. If somebody says, do this, but don't tell my mom, I think that should spark a question. You know, it's like, you know, what, you know, it's not a big. I just don't see it impacting us in that way. I don't see our teachers holding secrets.
You've not seen this in the news at all?
I'm seeing it in the. I see a lot of things in the news that are in the news because news gets ratings, but I don't see it affecting day-to-day life.
Yeah, important. But there comes times when it does.
Okay. Our teachers
So
shouldn't hold secrets from our parents.
Living in some kind of
I'm aware of no law that requires our teachers to hold secrets from their parents.
Well, why is that the school board's responsibility? If a student goes to a teacher and says something in confidence to a teacher, why does the school board have to decide if that teacher tells the parent or not? That should be up to the teacher and the student to make that decision. The school board shouldn't be telling the teachers, well, if someone says something in confidence, you have to go and tell the parents regardless of what it is.
But this is specifically involved with little kids
Yeah, no, right.
doing this gender thing, and now we
That's
all know.
one-
Just a second, let me
yeah.
finish.
Mhm.
We all know kids have imaginations,
Yeah.
and so how the school is going to deal with that is. I know
But that's
it's a
not-
terrible thing to have to talk about. I get it, but
But
it's
that's
what
one
we're
example
faced
that you
with.
just
You say
gave.
we're not faced with it today, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean we're not going to. be. I just was curious what your opinion was.
My
I'm not asking-
my opinion was that teachers shouldn't hold secrets, and Phil brings up a great point that you know, not every day-to-day interaction comes to the school board, but should it be? A lot of those interactions are non-public and deal with serious implications of those life. We've had hearings that are non-public with parents bringing issues to the school board for final resolution. I obviously can't talk about them here, but they have been really serious life-impacting decisions for these students. And I'm comfortable hearing the facts of a case, hearing both sides of a story, hearing the law, hearing everybody's opinion, and I'm comfortable working with my fellow board members to come to a decision. Some of those decisions get made in non-public, and you have non-public events, you know, happening on the select board. But I'm comfortable sitting in that chair at the school board to make those decisions that I think are in the best interests of the parents of this town.
Yeah, so Mike, the issue is, God forbid, it's now the school board's decision to go and tell a parent, and that child commits suicide or harms themselves, then I'm pretty sure the parents are gonna sue the shit out of, or sue the crap out of the school board then. So how do we protect our school board then? Because you talk about raising taxes, right? When you have a massive $1 million lawsuit, all our taxes are gonna go up.
Yes, yep, and we have a good law team which advises us, but no, I don't, the school board, I don't think would advise or get into the student parent lives in a way that should cause that kind of tension. That's, the school board's function is it has one employee, the superintendent. We have oversight power and responsibility to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we have that, and we have that vision to keep the school district moving forward with providing vision from our experience, from our constituents, and from our creativity. And that's what I hope to continue to keep doing as a school board member. Luke.
One question. You've been on the board for
2
6
terms.
years?
Yes, 6 years.
Okay. And the average school budget over those 6 years has been approximately $20 million?
It's been closer to 16 or 17 earlier on. We had 4 years in a row.
So let's say
we had 4 years in a row.
an average of 18 million?
Yep.
Okay. And how many students were graduated each year during that 6-year period?
How many students were graduated? We have about 900. We have our graduating classes are range from 80 to 95. We have about 950 in our district.
65.
What's that?
How about closer to 50 to 65? Maybe 70,
Okay, yeah.
but that's about it. So effectively, we're spending $18 million to graduate less than 80 students per year.
But you're educating all the others through all the other years, so that's not
Yeah,
fair.
the 18 million is not spent on the senior class.
No.
Each
It's the total
year,
school.
each year, yeah, there's a lot of other students. But if they've got a lot of other students, where is that number not getting into graduating students?
I'll have to.
You can't pick a direct number.
Are you calling like to a dropout rate, which I don't have our dropout rate numbers off the top of my head. I can get that for you if that's where you're going.
And I'm just kind of wondering where those students are going. I mean, what's the total number of students in the system now?
963. I
Okay,
believe.
so 12, divide that number by 12 grades.
Okay.
All right, and you're
Yeah.
looking at,
We're looking at, and
We still have the
is there? Were you asking me where the 18 million goes to support those 950 students?
But
We have
if
K-
you're only graduating, obviously,
We have a varied curriculum which prepares students for all aspects of life. Like I said, 44.5% go on to a 2-year college, and the rest of that 56% is either the workforce or the military. And so we have curriculum that traditionally, if kids want to go off to college, if kids want to prepare themselves for the military, we're part of Region 14 for the Career and Technical Education, CTE programs. We have an A+ auto program at the back of our school, which brings in students from our CTE region. We're preparing kids for those type of fields. It's our mission statement and vision to prepare kids to be functional members of society and contribute and be lifelong learners. It's an investment in the future of our country, and it's our part in New Ipswich to spend that 18 million to do that and to do it for the best action for the dollar. I hope I answered your.
So you just saved us money?
I'm sorry?
You just saved us money, you said 18 million.
I was using lose 18 million average over the last 6 years with my terms, but 20 million is our.
How much did a lawyer cost that night of your meeting?
I can find that out because I eventually I'm going to have to sign the manifest on that. I could find that.
Was it
but-
necessary?
I believe so. We're a $20 million business. And we have we serve as board members, from the community. We're not experts in all
Since you've been
fields.
up there, it sounds to me that you were a proponent for this 20 million. Like you're not trying to save the town any money or do anything.
I
I know you're
disagree.
talking about, you're talking about how the graduation and all that, but it doesn't seem like you're trying to save the town any money.
My first year 5 years
No,
ago is
right
where
now,
I.
20 million. I mean,
Right.
6 years ago, I don't know what happened 6 years ago, but
Right. Well, I've made decisions over my years to constantly
we
save
came up
money.
to 20 million in 6 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
With you in there?
And 5
You and
other
other
people.
Yeah, me and 4 other
You
people,
four
and,
other people.
and
Were
the
those same 4 people?
I'm sorry,
The 4 people, were they the same people for the 6 years?
not
Or
all
did they
6
move in
years.
and out?
We
Well,
have people
You
moving
can
in
say
and out.
yourself that you've been here for 6 years.
I have, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And
So
and
since you've been in there, it's been progressively going up.
Fixed costs are
So
going
is
up.
everything.
fixed costs are going up.
Mike, could I?
Everything's going up.
Steve, yes?
Could I? Yeah.
Up.
I just want to talk about a few of the elephants. And you haven't talked about an elephant in the room. There's a few elephants here. First of all, it is a $20 million business. No business, whether it's a private business or public held company or whatever, survives without investment. Traditionally and perpetually, New Hampshire has been in the bottom 5 in aid to education. If you're worried about your taxes, then you talk to your representatives and you find out why it is we're at the bottom of the ranks of aid to education. That has to come from property tax or it has to come from SWIFT. Either way, it's coming out of your pocket. Secondly, another elephant in the room is this idea about special needs children and special ed. If we were to have an out-of-district placement and they were coming to our school, they could cost us $125,000, $150,000 or more. We want the service for them, but we don't want to pay them. Why we take advantage of grants? We take advantage of grants because if we didn't, we couldn't serve those children. Third elephant. I hear a lot of, I've been listening to a lot about this idea about charter schools. There's a publication called Communities and Consequences. A public school has to take, if you will, all comers. They don't get to pick and choose. If you have a disabled child or a child with a challenge, a charter school or a private school does not have to take that child. Amen.
It is not a choice. The stipend that's given to the people with the charter school, a thing that was publicized by Ken Weiler, who was a state representative, put some $3,500, $3,600 towards the cost of an education. The parent who decided they were going to send their child to a charter school had to come up with a balance of the 9 or 10K plus the transportation. Now, I've heard all the questions going to Mr. Pellerito here. What I don't understand is where's the facts behind it? If the state is going to only provide that small a percentage for aid to education, then every community in this state is going to get pounded into the ground with property taxes. Why have there been 2 Claremont decisions? Why is there a current lawsuit that this board is supporting that is trying to fight to get honest aid to education if they're not concerned about it? Now, you want to talk about costs over time? If I have a business in my competition, my fixed costs, my supply lines, my return on investment, whatever changes, I have to change my costs. My structure, my just-in-time processing, all has to change. So at $20 million, when I see insurance costs going up by 7 to 8% a year, I see competitive salaries going up higher than ours, I see our good teachers going to greener pastures because we can't afford to pay them. Where does that revenue, Mr. Pellerito said it very well, where does that revenue come from? I can cry all day about my property taxes, but let's understand something. Education is in the realm of works for the public good. My house doesn't burn down, but I pay to maintain the fire department. My house isn't burglarized, but I pay for the police department. My water and sewer doesn't go out on me, but I pay for the maintenance of those plants. Now, I go on and on and on for service as things that are provided in the space of the public good. But don't give me this malarkey about I don't have kids. We don't have kids. but that's our future. Just as the fire department protects our housing, the police department protects our safety, the health department protects for emergency runs and whatever. Where does that come from? Why can't we all sit here and say, I'm not gonna break the law, I don't have any health care things, so you know what? I'm opting out of all of that support for this last year and a half, or these 2 years. I don't have an issue with my sewer, well, I don't have to pay for that.
Okay, I think you've made your point.
Well, I just think, Bob, I just think we need to talk about, as community and consequences and the state report said, we need to look at what's really there. Not some magical hoodoo voodoo that doesn't exist.
No, I know, I understand. We could place every student but one out of every school, and we'd still need to have somewhere to educate people, and somewhere to heat it, and somewhere to have principals and teachers and everything else, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sean?
Yep, I just had one point, cause you had mentioned that, each class had roughly, 80 to 90 kids in it. If you averaged it out, there's drop-offs from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school, and then in each grade throughout the high school, the graduating class of 2021 was well under 50 kids. So that's, a part of this issue, and I understand what you're saying, all the points that you're making as far as the necessity is concerned, but there is a bigger picture issue going on, and I'm just wondering, since you've been on the school board for 6 years, it doesn't seem like you guys have zoomed out to take a look at that enrollment issue and the decline, through the grades and what can be done to fight it. But
Yep, we can always do more, we're lifelong learners, right? And we mentioned, the enrollment issue, last 3 or 4 years, we're fluctuating total enrollment, 30, 40, we had a dip during COVID, but we came back up, right? I've seen some enrollment numbers at the kindergarten levels that say more people are moving into town, right? How can we get people to move into town and buy houses that pay property taxes and have children, right? These all have to be strategies we work on together. So I'm all for it, I'm all in, these are hard issues, and I'm ready to do it. I feel the school board should formally reach out to our delegations and talk publicly. I keep asking for us to do that, and I'm willing to take leadership of the board, should the board honor me with that, to go for that. Because the board right now, I'm part of the board, so I'm part of it. We're a bit going through the motions the last 2 years. What's next? We let things happen to us. I keep pushing for more strategy. I'm going to continue to push for it. I'm going to push my colleagues who are good people, who are smart people, to up our game. I want to keep upping our game, to look forward, to work these hard problems. That's what I commit to do. Yes, sir.
So first, kudos for running again, because
Thank you.
it's gotta be nuts to run a third term and take the abuse, right? So kudos for doing that. And I have kind of a couple of unrelated questions I'm listening. You mentioned in your planning for the school board about technology integration and insertion. I've also heard from the community that there's a risk with technology integration when it comes to cyberbullying, and there's a lot of negatives to the technology that we introduce into our schools today. What would you, as a school board member on your third term, do to prevent those kind of negative impacts of technology insertion?
Yeah, Matt Ballou, our technology director, and his staff are high quality members of our leadership team. It's pretty. My understanding is it's pretty difficult, for students to use the technology of our schools. When I talk technology of our schools.
What about their own technology?
Their own technology?
Do they have their own cell phones in the class, or they?
They're in the class. My understanding of the policy is they're not allowed to use them during class, or I'm not sure if they're supposed to be on or off. My cell phone doesn't get reception at the high school, so anyone on Verizon, it's the same problem.
They can access. So
the students can't access the Wi-Fi.
You can't even get on the school Chromebooks. You can't even get outside emails. It can only come from a Messinic email. So they can't email out, and their cell phones don't work on the Wi-Fi at the school.
Yeah, those safeguards are in place.
So you have an IT staff at the school?
Yeah. Matt Ballou is our director of technology, who's in charge of all that.
Okay, I can know that. contradiction earlier. In your opening statement, you talked about the things you've done over the last 6 years for retention. Yet in this meeting today, I heard that we didn't have any science teachers. So what was your big retention thing that we don't have any science teachers?
Our the contracts that we negotiated over the last, that were supported by the town, I'm grateful for, took steps forward to bettering our pay structure for our teachers. We've increased our pay for our substitutes. We've increased our, in this year's one of our warrant articles seeks to address some of those other inequities with our paraprofessionals to better competitively pay them. You talk retention, like I discussed with the superintendent a couple weeks ago, just a crazy idea. Like, maybe it's from an old TV show where I saw teaching hospitals, right? Maybe one solution to our teacher retention problem is to face into it and say, if we as a community can't pay what Hollis, Brookline, or Waterville Valley pays their teachers, maybe we become an incubator for the future teachers across the state, and we concentrate on bringing best and brightest teachers right out of school and we focus on learning with those teachers and bringing the best and brightest from all over our country to teach our students, and then then some of them will make roots here and start their families here, and others will go on. But maybe we engage with our superintendent is highly connected with all the superintendents around the state. Our superintendent can reach out and say, hey, let us be an incubator for teachers for the whole state. It's just an idea I came up with a couple weeks ago. Maybe that's something in my next term I'm gonna discuss with the whole board. So it's those type of ideas that we have to, is that idea workable? I don't know yet. It's an idea I came up with to talk with the superintendent about that we should analyze.
And it's a tough position to be in, because if you go to most of the real estate websites and you look at the school district here, we're not well rated, right? So drawing people into the community to get more taxes to improve the school, so it's a very vicious circle.
Yeah, that's been a long time, and that's in 2005 when my son was born. That's why I got involved, and I think we've made great strides.
I love paying taxes. I love investing in our future, which is our young adults and all that stuff. However, the accountability side of it is what bothers me. I heard in a town meeting not too long ago that the town was overpaying the school for a while.
Yeah.
I am agreeing.
Yes,
I was at that meeting
agreeing.
too.
Okay.
Yeah,
So how does
that did happen, and when it was uncovered, and corrective actions were taken on both sides. So it wasn't. The town did not overpay their taxes. The total amount over the year, it could have got to that, but guardrails were in place. How that exact issue surfaced, I forget. But I know we addressed it. We reached out right away to Sean, or if Sean, you reached out to us first, I forget who did what, but the issue was solved, the corrective actions were put in place.
When was that?
Within the last couple of years.
And part of it's me as the resident. I need to attend your meetings more, honestly. And we always give these guys a hard time.
Some of us, and our phone numbers. My home phone number's on the website for our school, and we understand that's why we serve, because not everybody in our town can come to the board meetings.
So if a person does come to a school board meeting, are they allowed to talk?
Yes, and I'm happy that the state actually changed some of these laws recently, because our school board policy used to be public comments only for topics that are on the agenda, and I kind of thought that was constraining, but state law has now changed where, public comment is to be public comment, and we're to give, I believe our policy is we give each 3 minutes, 3 minutes we have to give public comment on any topic, which I'm happy about. Early in my career on the school board, the policy was thou shalt make only public comments on a topic that's on the agenda. I thought that was constraining for our public. I'm happy that's changed. And we have public comments at the beginning of our meeting, and the state law requires us, which is another good thing too. If we open up public comments at the beginning and no one's there, no one made comment, we have to reserve time at the end of the meeting to open up for public comment again, should someone come later into the meeting. And that's how
like
it
a
works.
really good change was made, because I remember going and
When I was attending those board meetings for a year before I ran for election, right? It was like, what do you mean I can only talk to you on the topic on the agenda? I want to talk about something else publicly. So it was frustrating to me as a citizen. I'm glad that's
And
changed.
when are the meetings?
First and third Monday of every month at the school board office in Greenville, 6 p.m. Gretchen.
How many of those scheduled meetings have you made?
I think I'm at 90%. 4 of the school board members are currently at between 85 and 95% attendance. 1 school board member is around 60% attendance at this point, which is something the board should address.
And this is an unpaid position, correct?
I receive a $500 stipend. Taxes are taken out of it every year.
It sounds unfair.
Which has to pay for reviews.
Exactly.
There's counseling, we don't want to.
All right, why don't we,
John's been
we
waiting.
have to go what?
I just have one question for you.
Yeah,
Is
me?
it just one seat on the school board that's up for grabs?
There's one for Greenville and one for New Ipswich.
Or we can only vote for New Ipswich?
We can vote for both of them.
We can?
Yes.
Because the Greenville one is the at-large position, which is.
The requirement is it's a Greenville resident that both towns vote for.
Matt's
So
got the
it has
info.
to be a Greenville, so we can only vote for one New Ipswich person.
Correct.
That's what I was getting
Yeah.
at. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. A few copies of the deliberative session slide deck. Should anybody want some more detailed information.
So
John.
if folks don't mind, I'd like to sit, and I'll give you a little reason for that. So I've served the town in a couple of ways before. One is on the planning board, and the other is on the advisory budget committee for the school board. And I've always thought of myself as a leader who should sit with the people, if chosen by the people, and as a servant leader. And I think that's very important. So just to give you a little bit of a background for me, I've been a New Ipswich resident for about 6 years now. I was a college professor for about 20 years, and I gave up some of the things that worried me and that worry a lot of the people in this town, which is tenure and which is being a union member. I didn't see the value in a lot of those things for my career at that point. I have worked in industry. I currently do now for one of our region's largest employers, where we have a lot of our community members, and I wish I would love to see more of our graduates from our school system there. I served on the advisory budget committee I mentioned. I've taught as a substitute in both Boynton and Messinic, and I have volunteered this year in Messinic to help alleviate some of the challenges that we've seen with the science programs. And my family, my spouse works in the school district, and my daughters are juniors at Messinic, which allows me to plug that when you go to vote, the junior class is doing a fundraiser selling breakfast treats. So show up to vote hungry if you vote in the morning. So I'm running for school board for a number of reasons. And some of my beliefs of what we as leaders in the district and the school board should do is that we need safe schools. I think that's the first thing. And I know that's on everybody's agenda. We also need strong academic programs and continuing technical education programs. But we also have to do that by being fiscally prudent. And it's not clear to me that that has happened in my time as a New Ipswich resident, with all due respect to my colleague. I think we need equitable and supportive treatment of the school staff. And I think one of the things that I've heard concerns about, and I just had a discussion 2 weeks ago with a friend of mine, is a lack of respect, I think, from the district for those who choose to homeschool, and a lack of availability of school resources that those folks are paying for. So what we need to do, I think, as a school board and as a district and as a community, is I think we need to tackle some of the tough questions. And I know the board has been terribly busy dealing with things like COVID, for example, over the past 2 years, but it's time to put that behind us and to go ahead and address the really difficult questions that face New Ipswich and Greenville as both separate and one community. And that includes what behavior, both for students and from staff, is acceptable per district policy. We have very strict policies there. And the board needs to be held accountable for working with the school leadership to make sure that those policies are enforced so that our behaviors in the schools are appropriate. How do we best serve all of the students? Because we do have to educate all of the students that come to the district. How do we respect and support parent educators? And I'm talking about parents that choose to homeschool there. And how do we recruit and retain staff? And that's critical. And all of that comes to how do we best use the funds that we request from the taxpayer every year. And we know that we have all seen remarkable inflation in the past few years. We've seen rising energy costs. We've seen costs for things that we provide to our employees in the district, such as health insurance, go uncontrollably. So the question is, in the big picture, regardless of those little individual things, how are we best using the funds that we collect? So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about some of my thoughts and my opinions and perspectives. But I really look forward to hearing from you and answering your questions.
So you were just talking about their healthcare costs. Why not do what businesses do and get together with other school districts and make yourselves a large group so that you can get better rates?
That there are a number of ways that we could do that, not just with healthcare costs. So one of the initiatives I have seen in higher education, which sometimes work, is shared services. Are there efficiencies, at least in saving dollars, and if not saving dollars, in better quality of service, right? If we were to share some more things with the town. That could be some back office services, such as IT and HR. That could be pooling with the other districts or the town for things like health insurance or those types of things. I mean, and we also have to realize is that there are things that we can control and there are things that we cannot control as a district. And I think, general inflation is one of the things that's largely out of our hands as a community. But we also know that, we've heard tonight, is very correct, that we have funded some positions off of grants. And as Dr. Martin presented at the deliberative session, those grants are expiring in 2024. We're still going to have bond payments past 2024, right? So we'll have to decide, how does the district pick up the costs on those grants if we decide to keep those services and personnel? We still have to pay the bond. And just because the bond goes away doesn't mean that we're going to not have the need to bond something again in the near future, whether it's facilities or some other infrastructure. So we have to consider that, and that's where a long-term budget planning process that's not year to year, that maybe doesn't build on just, well, let's take last year's budget and roll it over. Maybe we can start fresh and look at a new budgeting process, which is called zero-based budgeting. Doesn't always work, but we could try it. So. Other questions?
You're all questioned out?
I think everyone is questioned out, and that's okay.
Question,
Yes.
yeah, I'll throw the same question. The whole culture war issue.
Yeah.
Parental rights. What are your thoughts? Do you know about this issue, or am I the only one in the room who knows about it?
Oh, no, I know. It wasn't that long ago that I was a college professor, and I will tell you, as a parent of teenage daughters, right, who are chosen to seek health care in the state of Massachusetts, I need permission to understand what's in some of their health records. That's just how the law is there, specifically.
They're minors?
Yes.
And you need to ask the state permission.
No, I need to ask the daughter's permission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But because of the state.
I'm not sure if it's a state or a federal HIPAA thing.
It's the state law in Massachusetts.
So
are you okay with that then? I guess
am I okay with it? No, I'm not okay with it. My friends in New Ipswich are not okay with it. But I do want to talk with you. I did want to make sure to bring up the topic because I know folks are worried about controversial topics being taught in our school, right? And what is available. I will disagree with some of my fellow citizens, and I respect the disagreement, is that I don't believe there should be secrets that are held within the school building that aren't available to the parents. I believe that if those are things that are likely to cause a child stress or a family stress, that we should offer resources for them, such as counseling, to make sure that there are interventions available for the family to choose to engage in. But we also have, as many of you may know, we have in New Hampshire essentially what's called the divisive concepts law about the things that should be taught in a district. And it says specifically, it talks about not promoting a specific agenda or a specific agenda based on what I'll call a protected characteristic. We also have is, and I brought a copy of this, we actually have a district policy, parental objections to specific course material. That we need to make sure that our community and parents know about this, so that if there are things that are being taught in the school that are in conflict with their family values, then they can ask that their students opt out from that material. Many of these topics that are talked about are difficult, right? And they're challenging, and as Jesus said before, they are theories, and he's very right about that. Our students need to be, I think, aware of many of them, because as they go out into a global society, they're going to need to know what they are, but they definitely should not be taught to adhere to or to comply with them. Yes?
I have a question, but I would like to ask both of you the same question, because I just remembered it. We've talked about students and their preferences for different pronouns. The teacher in Canada that decided to wear fake breasts, gigantic, he's a man, gigantic breasts with suggestive clothing every day to school. What would you do with a teacher that decided to act like that in the school system? I mean, because they've allowed this guy to come into school. The young boys are uncomfortable with this man with breasts out to here, wearing suggestive clothing. So, what would you do? Would
Rock, paper, scissors. See who gets it first.
No. It's okay. I'll take that one on. I would have to go ahead and look at the district policy, but most school districts, right? And I'm not exactly sure on this specific policy. Mike may be, right? Allow the district to limit clothing or attire or behaviors that are disruptive to the educational environment. So if someone were to present themselves in a way that was such a distraction, right? And a classical example, which is, I'm sorry, is not going to equate to what you mentioned, is a student wearing a shirt that has foul language on it, right? Being asked to remove it or wear it inside out, or ideally, go home and get something else, because otherwise everyone's going to, right? The district and the school leadership, and not even at the district level, at the principal level, very typically in America, and the Supreme Court has held this up, has the right to say that you can't do that in a way that disrupts the learning environment.
Right, I understand for the students, but I want to know if that translates to the teachers.
I believe that if a teacher were to present themselves in a way that disrupts the educational environment, that the same would and should apply to them.
Yeah, our policies are online. I don't have them memorized. That does sound like a chapter and verse policy we did review recently. So I agree with John. We disrupting whether it's with the swear words or in ways you stated, Tina, would not be acceptable. It's an educational environment where we're teaching kids to think, not what to think, and if it's being disruptive and it's not a place to grandstand, or if that's what this person was doing, or disrupting, then yeah, I believe we have policies in place to address it.
And you both would fight to get someone like that, either they would have to adhere to a dress code, or they would have to leave. Is that something that you would?
Yeah, all our employees are bound to adhere to our policies, yeah.
And I would hope also that if a woman came and her titties were showing in school, that they would do the same thing.
Oh, I would want the
Yeah,
same thing
right,
for that
so-
too.
No, I know, it just seems that there's this underlying trend in this community that you all are going through, so the shoe is on the other foot. If I had if my son came home and told me
I
that
think
there
you have
was
a
a...
chip on your shoulder.
No, I don't think so, I think there's
Yeah,
a, yeah. Oh, whatever.
So I just for information, and I feel bad that Jim Coffey's left because I brought the school district policy on class sizes because I knew he would ask about it, right? I brought an example of some of the school policies with him, and I think one of the roles of the board is to be a conduit for the community. If they're not getting action through the normal chain of command, for lack of a better term, to make sure that the district has, the district reviews, and the district enforces the policies that are there. And those policies are things that align with federal law, right? State education law, right? Contemporary practices in education, and also community standards. So there's a balancing act there, but it's imperative that the district write, both for its protection and for the protection of our students and to represent our community, write and enforce these policies.
So how do you translate the policies to the students? How would you do it, right? Because it's great to write policies and post them online, and most people will violate the policy through ignorance.
Yeah.
So how as a school board member would you ensure that the students are aware of the school policies such as wearing foul language shirts, swearing, bullying? How are the students communicated?
So the fundamental communication.
Yeah, they sign a
Every year,
contract.
So-
As a
so-
parent, I read that contract.
I don't have
I-
kids in this.
Hold on just 1 second. So fundamentally, there is a student code of conduct, and there's a contract that parents receive and that students sign every year. I've signed it, or co-signed it for lack of a better term. But I think then the other thing that happens with that is, as we reinforce that through teacher professional development, right, and teacher and staff education, so that teachers and staff know not only what the policies are, but how to respond when the policies are violated. And that
exactly, does your contract have the repercussions of violating the policy in it?
well, I would hope that the contract has, and we enforce contracts or employment agreements for folks that do not meet the expectations
You sign
of
them
the
every
position.
year. If your kid comes in and
Yeah.
repeatedly cusses, what does the contract say will happen to you?
What happens to the student?
To the student?
I don't have
Is it in the contract, is what I'm asking? Because you can have contracts with, there's no ramifications to negative behavior, then your contract is worthless.
I didn't print it.
I don't know, I'm asking.
I didn't
as a
print it and bring it
question.
with me, but there is an escalating disciplinary
Yes.
thing
Right.
that's in that in general.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, and the principal has the purview for their school, right, to enforce the board's policies. The superintendent carries out the policies of the board, and the principals then carry it out to their schools. And you know, like I said, our goal isn't to kick people out of school. Our goal is to make children successful.
Yeah, I agree.
And our policies help with that, and then the creativity of the leaders we put in place, you know, put that into fruition.
Okay, thank you.
So it's
May I all ask you a question? So may I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
I don't know what you get for answers, but.
All right. So you know, one of the things that I've been hearing from, and I've been talking with people about, and we've heard it tonight, is people are concerned about the costs of education, and fundamentally it trickles down to your taxes. And one of the things that I've heard in this community, since I think I was only here less than a year when I was first on the planning board, right, was that with a shrinking school population, we do not necessarily need 3 buildings in the district, and it costs too much money. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that for sure, but I wanted to ask you all what you would think if the board made it a priority, and this can be a priority whether I'm selected or not, Mike's here, he can hear it, over the next year to do a very careful study of, do we need 3 school buildings? If we didn't have 3 school buildings, what would be the cost savings to the district? And 3, how would we go about making a transition if we chose to only have 2 school buildings so that the students are still well educated? And 4, should we have a reversal over time, right? Because population reversals take time and the student population would grow. How would we then respond to that if we didn't have 3 buildings? And I'm curious to get, John raised his hand, but other folks, I'd like to hear what you all think about that.
Did you have your hand raised?
He did.
Yeah, it was just I've heard that plan already exists. That's already been formulated, and the SAU has that currently.
I'm familiar with, at one point when there was, contingency plans had to be made at some, I forget the exact year, like when there was a chance that the budget would be cut to an amount where we couldn't keep 3 schools active. So a contingency plan was put in place at that point, should that have happened. It didn't, because the budget cut to that extreme was not passed. So we didn't have to, I wasn't on the board at that time, but the contingency plan didn't have to put in place.
So a lot of that groundwork is in place.
I'll go find out if that plan still exists. I don't know sitting here, right here, if that's an active plan, Sean, but it's my job to get you answers.
So that,
At least for another week, hopefully a week and 3 years.
So with all due respect, that's more than 6 years, and that's and we can use more contemporary leadership in looking at things like that, and that's what I think is necessary for the school board. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as one of the selectmen, I am looking forward to these meetings with the school board, because I too have heard that, and it seems a logical path.
At least to
address
explore and understand.
dropping
So
population. But there's a lot to think about with it, yeah.
And if it does come to fruition and you do the 2 schools and there's a building, maybe it could be used for a safety complex, all under one roof.
You can bond a new school.
The community center for the elderly.
All right,
Yes.
For the coffee
I
shop.
will say,
questions?
I grew up in a school system that had 6 through 12. And having 6th graders
Me too.
in the same building as seniors probably is not a good,
Yeah, I would agree. I did the same.
Yeah.
it's just something to consider.
I-
How you break up the age.
And that was, and the impact, as a person who went to a junior high, which is now combined 7 through 12 with the high school, I think there's a good merit to that as an idea, and that's why understanding how this any change would impact the educational outcomes for our students is important. We don't want to do things that are detrimental for our students.
Right, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying something to consider.
Yeah.
Helps your pocket, but maybe not
All right.
kids.
Any additional questions for John?
All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to encourage everybody to show up on the 14th and make sure you vote. Thank you.
If you're not registered to vote, if you have friends who aren't registered to vote, we'll be here tomorrow night.
That's right.
And you can request absentee ballots up through 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon.
And Bob, thank you for taking this time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Tomorrow at 6.
Thanks for speaking.
Baby, my sign.